Hey there, Touch Designer programmers. So we are going to dive into the deep end of the pool today, and we're going to look at working with external Python libraries. I know this is a bit of a wobble for all of us from one time or another, and so that's what we're going to dig into. There's lots of crazy, weird things about this, so be prepared. This is a lot of Python. This is a lot of command line. This is a lot of digging in the terminal kind of space. I know it's, I know when I started doing this work, it was frustrating, intimidating, and maddening in lots of ways. And so hopefully we can kind of pull apart some of the weird wobbles that happen here and kind of better understand it. So we're going to work with the repo TouchDesigner Summit 2019 External Python. This is hosted at Mir Lab. You can track this goober down here by going to mir.works. From mir.works, the workshops, the 2019 Summit, external Python libraries. You can find the repo here, or similarly, you can go to my website, matthewreagan.com, and resources, workshops, and external Python libraries. So there's plenty of ways to get to this set of goodies. These will take you to the GitHub library, or GitHub repository that we're going to pull all this from. And the first thing to do here is to just go ahead and clone or download all the goodies here, because this is what we're going to work from in a lot of the fun, exciting stuff. What is this about? What's going on? What is the goodness here with all the exciting stuff that we're going to fight with? Well, here, if we take a look at our repo, we'll see there's lots of fun stuff to take a look at. And we're going to dive in first by jumping into this ext-python, external Python directory, and firing up this tow file. And before anything else, we're going to start with, what on earth are you going on about here, Matt? Because we are just chomping at the bit to do all sorts of kind of wild, goofy, crazy stuff. Well, I'm so glad you asked. What we're up to is that if you've ever worked with Python in Touch, you've noticed a particularly fun thing. So if you open up your command or your text prompt, you can open it either as a floating window, or you can do, hopefully in this tow file that you've launched, it's already got a little debug window over there on the right-hand side. So we can do something like this. Let's first start by importing time. So we're going to import time. And like in typical Python programming, if we wanted to say wait 5 seconds, we might use the time module. And we might do something like time.sleep and sleep for 5 seconds, and we hit start. That works exactly the way that we hoped that it might, but we'll notice, let's do that one more time. We'll see that it freezes our timeline here in Touch. Oh, good golly, that's like not at all what I want it to do, especially when you're working with interactive applications or things that are doing some cool rendering. You don't necessarily want everything to freeze while some Python call happens. So what gives? What's going on? How do we fix that? How do we work around that? Better yet, I don't care about that so much, but what I really would love to do is I'd love to work with some external Python library like SciPy maybe. And NumPy is distributed with Touch, which is great. But if I try to do something like import SciPy, I might see something that's like, oh, SciPy's, oh no, I don't think SciPy's here. But let's try something else, import like sklearn. Oh, there's like something is not working there. So like, what gives, right? We might have all sorts of goodies that we want to work with that we can't get our hands on. And what might we do to help work around that particular set of problems? Well, that is in fact what we're going to look at in the whole stretch of this set of tutorials and examples. And we'll look at a practical example, and then we'll finally land on how can we approach a reusable kind of methodology for how we can include external libraries in our projects. That's not going to mean that it breaks every time, or that I have to do some kind of special set of gymnastics when I'm trying to make all that work. So that's a big kind of idea that we're after. Oh, we'll see there's lots of different ways that we can pull that apart. If you've looked at any of the sub-process stuff, there's some other goodies there in another set of tutorials that you can kind of are a hint at some of the exciting directions that we're moving. So without further ado, let's dig in and start to get ourselves into a little bit of trouble. Well, and before we do that, I should actually preface this with why might I want to work with external Python libraries? Like what's the good of that? Well, there's all sorts of things that you might be able to take advantage of. In fact, here at the bottom of our repo, we can see there's links to all sorts of interesting things that you might do, right? You might work with the Philips Hue library. You might want to work with Instagram. You might want to control Spotify. You might want to control Sonos speakers, right? There's this great awesome Python, this big list of all sorts of stuff that you might want to do with Python that you can't do kind of out the gate just with TouchDesigner. This also gives you the opportunity to leverage the work that other developers have contributed to the Python community. That gives you a little bit more flexibility and reach when you start to think about interesting, fun, kind of goofy things you might do with that. There are a few limitations that we have to kind of wrangle, especially when it comes to when we run with Python. One of the important things to understand about how Python works in Touch is that it's executed in the main thread, by and large, unless we use the threading module. And that happens because, we typically want everything to say synchronized, right? Like I don't want some, maybe like a movie file in, and then let's see that I attach that to like an HSV adjust. I want to know that when I run a command that changes a parameter here, that it does in fact update that parameter when I ask for it to happen, and not that it's going to happen asynchronously at some yet to be determined moment in the future. I want some explicit determinism in how I'm operating that code, which is great, except if I'm doing something like, say, posting to the internet or trying to send an email that all of a sudden freezes everything in TouchDesigner just while I'm trying to do some simple web request. So what gives? What do I have to think about? What are some ways around that? And how can I make sure that just because I can make it work on my computer, because goodness knows we've all done this, it works on my machine, I don't know why it doesn't work on your machine. How can we make sure that what we build is properly transportable with our project in a meaningful and reliable way? So those are the big kind of exciting, crazy wobbles that we are up to with this kind of idea and what we're going to monkey around with. We're in fact going to leave behind TouchDesigner now for a few minutes while we set up a whole bunch of other things. And we're going to spend a little bit of time fighting with Python proper and getting things installed on our computer. So I'm going to make no assumptions about what you've done at this point. Hopefully you have Python installed on your machine already. If not, that's totally okay. We're going to walk through that process. We'll look at that in Mac and Windows. So don't worry. We'll look at these processes in both operating systems where Touch is currently supported, and hopefully get to the bottom of some of the exciting things that we want to monkey around with.